Okay, so today we're talking about mental health. So this is the how to wear a crown way to do mental health. So here's our part from the book. It says if something has worth and value, then we want to take care of it. If a car is really expensive, then we get it washed and waxed and we have the oil checked and changed regularly. We change the filters and we fill it up with premium gasoline. We take it to the mechanic to get the brakes fixed when they begin to wear down, and we make sure that the bulbs all shine brightly. If we would do this for a car, why wouldn't we do this for a human being? A human life is indeed more valuable than even the finest automobile. So, how do we take care of the mechanics of a human being? Well, first, we need to understand that a human being is more than just a physical body. A human is composed of four different bodies, which includes a physical body, a mental body, an emotional body, and a spiritual body. So let's go ahead and take a deep dive into each of these categories. And today, actually, we are not going to deep dive into all of them. We are going to talk specifically about the mental body. So the mental body says, when my mental body isn't well, I can usually tell because my thoughts are negative or racing, and it's difficult for me to focus on the things that I want to put my energy into. It's difficult for me to remain present in the moment, and my mind wanders to paranoia, far-fetched ideas about life or people that just aren't true. I'm also usually really closed minded and unwilling to accept any kind of new ideas or new ways of thinking. Like, you know, those times when you're on the computer and you click open a tab and then you have something else that you wanted to check. So you open another tab and then you remember that you needed to pay a bill. So you open another tab. And then the next thing you know, you have 15 tabs open and you can't remember why you opened your laptop to begin with. Well, that's my brain when my mental body is unwell. Mental illnesses such as anxiety, depression, bipolar are obvious signs of an unwell mental body. A psychiatrist is the type of doctor that you want to go see when you feel like your mental body is unwell. Now, like I said about the physical body, yes, there's a root issue, but sometimes you need help to deal with the symptoms. Same with the mental body. A psychiatrist can prescribe medication, and you can also do talk therapy with someone to help sort some of your mental issues out. There are things that you do to help your mental body on your own too. They are A, quiet. The first thing is first. I do this when I realize that my brain is going haywire. I stop. Just stop everything that you're doing as soon as you can. And when you do find an appropriate time to stop, get quiet. Turn off anything that could add any additional noise or information to your already chaotic and overused brain. Yeah, that's right. I said it. Turn off the TV, the phone, the radio, all of it. Just let your brain have a little while to process through all of the thoughts and the things floating around inside. This is like the process of clicking off each tab on your internet browser one by one. You go through each thought just like it's a tab and decide if you need to focus on that right now or if you are done with it and can save it for later time. Just allow your mind the space and the time to think about all the things that it has ingested throughout the day. I remember the first time I did this practice, I was so surprised at how many thought processes I had going on that I wasn't even aware of. Prior to learning how to do this, I thought I was nuts and that my brain was broken and that I was doomed to be a mess of a person forever. But that's really not true. I had just left my computer on and running 1,000 things at once, and then it finally crashed. So the next thing is talking and writing. Talking and writing are so useful for the mental body. This is the cleaning process. I know I've been using this whole computer reference thing a lot, and I'm going to keep up with it for a minute. So this is the cleaning process of the computer. You know how every once in a while you have to sit down and go through all your files when your computer is out of space and look through each thing and delete it if necessary or move it into an external drive or whatever. Well, this is what I'm talking about, and writing does this for your brain. When you are getting those thoughts out and onto paper or out on the table for you and your psychiatrist to deal with, then you're unloading all of that energy out of your mental body, just like deleting a big old folder full of files you don't need anymore. Purging is great for relieving mental pressure. I recommend having a routine that includes journaling and writing and talking with people that you feel safe with to express to every day or a few times a week, at least to keep purging mental energy a regular thing in your life. And lastly is C, which is sleep. Sleep is just like turning the computer off at night. You know how when a gadget is acting funny or not working right, and your parents say, "Did you try turning it off and back on?" And lo and behold, turning it off and on actually made it work again. Well, this concept works with human beings too, surprisingly. If my brain is acting funny, I can usually bet that a nice cozy bed and a few hours of uninterrupted sleep will reset my brain. It is so simple yet so powerful. And I think the most important thing to remember about this whole mental body section. So when I was channeling, it was all about mental health today for today. It was all about, I'm like dying of thirst today. So I think most of us that enter this group have history with mental illness, and we have diagnosis. And those diagnoses can mean a lot to us. They can begin to shape our identity. They can affect what we think about ourselves in terms of our sense of self-worth. They can affect our self-esteem, and they can sway us. Something that happens commonly is, even if we have the symptoms and we fit the category, we fit the criteria for a diagnosis, sometimes we can amplify our own symptoms by trying to merge with that identity more, right? We identify ourselves with that diagnosis, and we can amplify or exaggerate or begin to just accept, right, some things about ourselves, some character traits, some behaviors, and say that's just how I am because I have this diagnosis. And I'm a mental health professional, and so I'm a mental health professional, and I'm a person that has a mental health diagnosis. So this is a personal subject for me. And I want to like tread lightly the way I say it, as to not like offend anybody or make it sound like I'm not, compassionate for people with mental illness, because I am truly. But what I've realized from my own journey and just like working with other people, there's a lot of the symptoms, right, of our mental illness are still things that we can change. These are still things that we can find a core reason for, heal, and transcend and move beyond and outgrow, and realizing why we did certain things. All a diagnosis is, at the end of the day, is a set of symptoms, and these symptoms are behaviors, right? This is things that are displaying outwardly that a physician can see, right, in order to put you into a category of people that also have those similar characteristics and behaviors. And why that's useful for mental health professionals is because then that can guide us in the direction of what therapies to provide that person. And that's really it, right? It helps us figure out how to treat the person instead of having to make a lot of guesses. We can quickly get on a path to helping that person feel better. But there's a lot of downsides to being diagnosed, like stigma or getting wrapped up in something, letting it affect your self-esteem, your self-worth, all those things that I talked about earlier. So I want us to understand what a diagnosis is first, is that that's all it is. It's a group of symptoms, behaviors that you have, and that's why you fit in that criteria. And then I want you to understand what it's not. It's not a death sentence. It's not a stamp on your forehead. It's not it's not your name. It's not a, what am I trying to say? It's not a moral compass for you. It's not a moral issue. Um, it's something outside of you, right? This isn't something that's a part of you. This is something that's outside of you. This is a word on a piece of paper somewhere that helped a physician figure out how to treat you better. It's not who you are. It's not a part of you. Um, and we get mental illness, right? Our mental illness is, we can be genetically predispositioned to having mental illness, right? However, a lot of that comes from generational curses, if you will, generational trauma, where sets of behaviors are getting passed down, right? And so we continue to display the same behaviors over and over again. Do I think that there is an actual like biological component to it? Absolutely. Our brains can change. They can get broken and they can get better. We can be born with our brains broken in a certain way. Like there is a physical and biological component to it. But what I want you to know is that you do have power around your mental illness, right? And there is that opposite of that, which is mental wellness, that we can get to. And we don't have to take this diagnosis and say, this is just how I am forever and ever and ever. And I'm just this broken person. I'm going to stay this way, right? There's so many shames attached to mental illness and diagnosis. And most of that we're doing to ourselves, right? We're doing most of that to ourselves by strongly identifying and merging our sense of self with the diagnosis. So, my point is that we need to do this process of disidentifying with the diagnosis. That we get to be the person, right? This is person first language, if you've ever heard that in the mental health world by your therapists or whatever. And that means that it gets to be in our language, but we're going to use it in a different way where me, the person, is always first. Like if you noticed earlier, I said, and I'm a person who has diagnosis. I'm really conscious about the way that I say things. Like addiction is in my history, addiction is in my story, but you'll never hear me say I'm an addict. That's just the gross energy for me. And like other people might have a different opinion about that, but that I know that what I say after the words I am is so fucking powerful and it creates my life. And so I work very diligently to make sure that I only say things that I want to create in my future, right? So I'll say addiction is in my past, addiction is in my story. I'll say I'm a person that has a diagnosis of, or whatever. Like I disidentify myself with it through my language. And that's how we do that, right? We create this separation where there's a space, right? And as I'm using my language to separate myself from that, I think about it in my head. Yeah, I have that diagnosis, or I got that diagnosis, because I think about it as a thing on a paper somewhere in some dude's office or something, right? Not that it's like part of my identity. Instead of saying like I am bipolar, I am depressed, right? To say I have a diagnosis of that. It's a different energy and it's a different vibe. So disidentifying. And so let's talk about medication. Medication can also hinder us a bit on our journey, just making us feel like we don't have power in some way. But if you do utilize medication, to know that you're the one in charge, right? That you're the one that is in control of your wellness, and that you are the powerful being that's choosing to use things at your disposal and resources and medications to help yourself, right? It's not that your whole life was saved by this one medication or this doctor. Or I think so often like we hand over our power when we have mental illness. 2 medications, 2 doctors, 2 treatments, things like that. So I just want you guys to like disidentify or disconnect your power also with the things that help you. These are all tools, they're all resources, but to remember, right, that there's multiple pathways and there was plenty of different ways that you could have gotten better. So then that brings me to my next topic is dumbass doctors. So when we're navigating the mental health field, it can be tricky because there's a lot of people that have the power and have the say so over how your mental health is being treated. And it can feel like you don't have a say so in the things that are happening because you need this person to agree which medicine you need, and you need this person to agree which type of treatment you need, and what have you. So, and I say dumbass doctors as a joke, right? Most doctors are super smart. All the doctors I've ever worked with are super smart, and I love them all. But I say that to bring them down off of a pedestal, right? That we might put doctors on in our mind, where we're like, they should know all this stuff. In all actuality, they're just another human being like anybody else. And so in the book, we talk about, that idea of equality and always remembering that I'm a soul, the other person's a soul. We're all just souls with equal value and weight in the world. Yes, they might have the doctorate and they went to school, but I'm still the expert on me, right? I'm the one that's lived in my body with my brain for 34 years. So I think we need to always remember to be empowered around, that we are the expert of our own self when we're getting treatment, that we have a right to like be involved, which brings me to the topic of self-advocacy. So I want to talk about what that is. Self-advocacy, the definition of that is it's the action of representing oneself or own views or interests. So you're representing yourself, standing up for yourself, essentially, which can be hard when you feel that power dynamic between you and a provider in an office. It can feel like you don't have the right or you don't have the ability to say, no, I don't think so, because I've heard some things about that medicine and that medicine's a little scary to me and I don't really want to take that. Or, yes, it is time for me to come off my medicine. I am ready to wean off of this medicine. Or, no, I don't want to use medicine to treat my anxiety. I want to go the all natural route. Like it's hard to feel like you have the right and the power to say things like that in the office. It can be intimidating, but you do. And they're not actually allowed to do anything to you that you don't agree to. They're not allowed to prescribe you anything that you don't agree to. So you guys need to know that you have that power when you're dealing with mental health, and fucking utilize it, because it can change the course of your mental wellness journey if you do. And so often, there was so many times in my journey where I used my power of self-advocacy and it completely shifted the way things went in my journey, and for the better. And it was like, oh wow, like what if I wouldn't have done that? What if I wouldn't have stood up for myself? How far off track would I have been for how long? Nobody's the expert on you but you. You live with your body, you live with your brain, you know you best, and you know your timeline and what your comfort levels are with things. And you also have the ability to use, this resource of education. Like we have the education, anything you want to know about the medicines that you're taking, the medicines you're being prescribed, the medicines that are available, the different options that are out there for your specific diagnosis are all available for you to take a look at. And along with forum after forums after forums of people and their real life experiences. And so I always recommend, when you're navigating that mental health world, to take a look at what is available. Okay, so I want us to understand, that we have that power, that we're the expert on us, and then also to understand the difference between mental illness and mental wellness, right? Because both states are available to us at any given time, I feel like, and we can choose to move in whichever direction we want to move into. We can move into that direction of mental wellness, or we can be on track to more mental illness, and looking at what the difference of those looks like in your life. And that looks different for everybody sometimes. It your idea of your picture of what you look like when you're ill and your picture of what you look like when you're well might be completely different than mine. So you have to figure out those for yourself. And remember that we have the 4 bodies, and that the mental one is just one of those bodies, and that they all intertwine. And so sometimes on the road to mental wellness actually means jumping into those other categories and looking at, well, is my physical wellness off? Is that why my mental, right? If my gut health is off, if I'm overweight, if I'm not getting proper vitamins and nutrients, that can affect your mental health, right? If your spiritual life is off and you're feeling unfulfilled and you feel like you don't have any hope because you don't think there's any meaning in the world, that's going to bring a lot of issues with your mental health, right? So they're intertwined as well. So we can't just focus on this one aspect. And that's why I want you to not focus so heavily on just the mental health pathway and field and the doctors and the medicines and the diagnosis for mental health, and know that you have a lot of power behind moving more into wellness, and that it means looking at that whole picture. And you're the only one that can know that stuff. You're the only one that can know on the inside if your weight is affecting your mental health more than the fact that your dosage is low. You're the only one that can truly know and say, no, I don't want to go up on my dosage of medication. Instead, I'd like to lose 20 pounds. And that's going to actually make me feel less depressed than if I raise my medicine, right? You're the only one that can know those things for sure. So you have to claim that, right? I'm the expert on me. I have the power over my journey, my wellness, my mental health. And trust yourself. You're the expert, and you have an intuition and a gut. You're connected to a power greater than you, and you can intuitively navigate a lot of your healing. And I don't think that I think we immediately jump to letting treatment teams and all of these things like guide us, in which all of those things are great, and you should definitely 100% allow all of that support to work in your life. But there's also some more infinite knowledge and some greater things that you can connect to that can also, and maybe more effectively, right, support you in that. So just remembering that you are connected, that we're all connected, that wellness is an energy that you can tap into, and that you're just a powerful fucking being that can choose to heal. I love you guys.